Hey everyone. I never know quite when it actually starts streaming. It always seems to be a little bit delayed, so that's why I'm a bit gormless to begin with. I'm actually using two PCs for this streaming this time because I tried it just on the Surface Book, and although it was a lot better than the Surface Pro 7, it was still a bit jerky, and also I managed to leave two audio inputs open as well, so there was a horrible reverb that I subjected everybody to. So hopefully I'm not doing that on this particular stream. But what I wanted to look at today was Azure Digital Twins, which, as you can see here, is in preview at the moment. But it's actually the second preview with a whole heap of new features that they released around June, around build time. Which I'm not going to go into the extra details in that, but Azure Digital Twins essentially allows you to model your infrastructure from everything from big machinery all the way down to little sensors, and you can map those around and create relationships between them, so that you can try and figure out how your whole infrastructure works. Incredibly powerful. Something like Industry 4.0 is how that works. And it's based around a modelling language, DTDL, Digital Twins Domain Language, I think it stands for. Definition language, apologies, which is a JSON-like extrapolation, and you can then define the properties and the capabilities of each of your individual pieces of IoT kit, and then define relationships between them. So I thought I'd run through just creating the basic Digital Twins instance in the Azure portal, and then how to get that set up. And then there's a nice Digital Twins Explorer, a little bit of open source software that Microsoft have created to be able to view the Digital Twins setup, and they've got some example bits and bobs that you can view in there as well. So there's some really good tutorials for this as well, which is essentially where I'm coming from with this. So this is where I'll be starting, which is how to just set up the instance and the authentication in the portal, and then you can then follow along in another tutorial then the basics of the Explorer and how to get that set up. So they're essentially the two tutorials that I'll be running through, although I'm not going to just read it straight off the screen, obviously. So we start out in the Azure portal, as you can imagine, and we need to add Azure Digital Twins. We can create one of those. So there we are. There's the preview one of those. And we can add a new one. I'll leave it in that subscription. I'll create myself a new resource group for this. Digital Twins. Ooh, can't spell. Create a new one of those. I'm going to do everything in North Europe. See, there's it's only available in certain regions at the moment. So North Europe is one of them. West Europe would be another one I could use. And then I'm going to call this Digital Twins 1. Actually, it's got to be unique. So I'm going to put my initials before that. I don't want any tags, and then I can create that, and that'll take a little minute to go ahead and deploy that service. So that's not going to take too long, but this is all going to be based off of an IoT hub, and one of the changes with this is that you can actually bring your own IoT hub to Digital Twins now, but this will automatically provision us everything we need when we do this. So we can go to that resource, and I'm going to pin that to my dashboard that I've created there. Pin. And we automatically get some bits here. So this host name is one of the things that we're going to need a little bit later on. But we don't need to worry about it too much now. During the tutorials, they ask you to set up permissions for your user. So you add a role assignment here and select a role. And we want Azure Digital Twins owner, and then a user, and I'm already there actually, but I'm going to add myself here and save. So if you've got other users in your tenant there, then you can do that, and it'll just invite me. I didn't necessarily need to do that because I'm already in here and I'm the owner. So, but it's good just to call that out. So what you now need to do is set up the Active Directory stuff here. So if we go into Active Directory, then we've got to register an app. So we've got app registration sitting here. And you see I've got nothing registered at the moment. So if I click new registration, then we can give this a name like Digital Twins app. And then we need to leave this as a default single tenant directory here. And we need to have a public client native web. And then that needs to be HTTP localhost, I think. We might need to change that later because I can't remember if that needs to be localhost or localhost 3000. But I think the tutorial actually calls that out as localhost at this point. So let's just leave it like that for now. And that now means that, those Digital Twins is now hooked up to our Azure Active Directory as well. So that's that little bit done. I'm just going to check this, make sure I'm not going to miss something at this point. Yep, so I've done the role and I've set the permissions, created a registration at that point. And now I need to do the API permissions. And I need to add a permission here so that the API can get called. And we need to add a permission to that. And then some APIs. And here we need to do the Azure Digital Twins. There we are. And it needs read-write access. And we can add that permission. And that's all good. And then we can view the manifest if we like. We can just make sure that that the necessary stuff's been added and required access has been added down here. And we've got this reply URL as well that we may end up having to change. But that all seems to be okay. And now we have, in the overview of this, we've got an application ID and a tenant ID. Now, when you go through the Azure Digital Twins Explorer stuff, then we're going to need these. So if I switch to here, look. So this is the page for the Digital Twins Explorer, and you need to download this zip file here and extract it to a place on your PC, which I've already done. Just here. And then if you go into the client and then the source directory, and then open up a terminal. Now I've already done this bit. Let's type that right. There we are, that's better. Open a terminal up. And then you need to do an npm install. Make sure obviously that you've got more than node 10 installed. I think I've got node 14 on here, but that's perfectly fine. And then this will run through and just get everything installed. I think I've already done this, so this is going to sort of overwrite whatever installs there, I think. This is actually a React app, a SPA that Microsoft have created that's quite nice actually. It's quite well featured. I've not spent a massive amount of time looking through what it can do yet, but following along with the tutorials, it's pretty cool actually. So that's installed, and then we can start that with npm run start, and that'll compile our application, compile our sample application. Then it's going to spin up a new browser window for us. So let's just prepare for that. It should pop up into here. While that's compiling, when it comes to it a little bit later in another stream, when we're creating this thing from scratch, there's actually a plugin for Visual Studio Code that lets you write the DTDL, that definitional language, in VS Code with IntelliSense. It's quite nice, works quite well actually, and it's pretty straightforward. I had a quick play with it, and it works quite nicely actually. So that takes us a little minute. Starting the development server. And of course, in behind this is compiling everything in that source directory down to a public directory, and then spinning up the server and running that. So it's a watch server as well. So if you make any changes to the code in behind and save them, then it'll automatically recompile and redeploy, which is quite nice. It does take a minute. We need to be able to fast forward. Come on now. Faster, faster. Ah, here we go. So this should spin up now. And there we are. So this is the basic design. Looks like oh yeah, I can zoom in. That's fine. Good. So what we need to do is connect up here. So we need to sign in. Now, see, I've already got some stuff in that I had there before, but obviously I need to update that with my latest information. So I need this application ID. So I can copy that and then paste that in there. So that's the client ID. And the tenant ID here, the directory, and copy that, stick that in. And then I need the ADT URL, the Azure Digital Twins URL, which we created before. So if we go, this is the directory, but if I go back to the Digital Twins, then here's our host name. Now, you've got to be a little bit careful here, because what it doesn't tell you is that it actually requires that HTTP. So if you just paste it in without that, then you'll get an error. So I'll just show you that. It'll do some authentication, but then we get this error. It's actually, this is a second error. So it's complaining that ID token is not enabled. So I need to go back to my directory and just refresh this. And these are the things I came up against the first time I did this. I'll try and remember how I fixed it. So we go into that. And then I think it's in API permissions. Or is it in authentication? It might be authentication actually. Yeah. So yeah, interestingly, so that I don't think that actually wants to be in there. So if we add a platform, I need to add a web platform here, and maybe I just missed this, but I think actually this wants to be HTTP localhost 3000 in there. And here's what's missing is these two, and you need both of them. Configure. And then we'll get an extra section down here now for web, for a redirect URL. So this is all about the authentication we're setting up here. So we're just going to authenticate this with Azure, with the portal, and it needs to then be able to redirect back. So it just needs to know where it's going. So theoretically now, we'll get a completely different error if I connect this now. Let's see what it does. Right, I need to consent and accept. Good, and this is exactly the error that I was expected to see. So this is caused by the fact that I've not got that HTTP. Now, I've put in a couple of pull requests, one for the source code for this that automatically adds the HTTP if it's missing, but also one in the docs that just sort of calls this out, because although in the docs there's a little bit in there that just says, you know, it's got to be in the format HTTP. Most people are going to do what I'm doing and just copying that directly from the portal, that address. So it's not going to be particularly obvious. And I looked at it and it took me ages to actually figure out that it needed this. Probably, had I thought about it, it's probably one of the first things I should have checked. But you stick that in and connect. and there we are. That's now running. So what we need to do is upload a couple of sample models, and you can do that here in this upload a model. And I've got a sample app, so there's some samples that I've downloaded as well. And if you go into models in there, there's a couple in there. You can load all 4 of them, but the demos here just call for the floor and the room to be added. So if we open that up, then we've got some bits here that actually tell you if I do that. Then this is that JSON, extended JSON LD, I think it's called, that we had before. So it's given an ID and it's a type, it's an interface, and it's just given a display name of floor, and then this is just telling it that it's a DTDL context here. So that's just the type of modeling language we've got, and then there's a relationship here, and it's saying that there's an ownership department and an ownership user. And then for a room, then we have some contents of a room, including a temperature and a humidity. So there would obviously be sensors that you'd have in there that would deliver that for you. I think that semicolon 2 is the version number after it. So the next thing we need to do is we need to populate the graph. Now they've done that with a little bit of Excel stuff here. So there's an Excel document building scenario, and this is going to map the relationships between those particular things. So if I load that in, import the graph, there we are. So we have a room, and a floor rather contains a room, and we have floor 1 and floor 0, and so we've got floor 0, room 0, floor 1, room 1. And each of these has got a property as well. So how did I get the properties? Oh, I think you need to save this. That's just in preview. That's what we need to do. So we've imported 4 twins, digital twins, and 2 relationships, and close that. And now we need to run a query, and we can just run a simple query just selecting everything. And so that's going to give us pretty much what we had before in that preview. So 2 floors, 2 rooms. And then over here on the right hand side, it's going to give us some live data from that as well. I say live, it's obviously just sample data, but we can see that room 0 has got a temperature of 70 and room 1 has got a temperature of 80. So you can put where temperature is greater than 70 and run that query. I think that's the query language, or maybe not. Hold on, what is the query that you need to put in there? Hold on. What have I done that's not right there? Oh, where T dot, dear. T. That's all. T dot temperature with a capital T. Oh, that's interesting. So what have I done wrong there? It's like a star from Digital Twins T. There we go. That's better. So we have one room that's 80. Now, if I take that back out again and run the query, then these their floors and the rooms have gone above. These are actually editable fields, so I can change that to 80 and then save that. And it creates this thing called a patch, and it tells you what that's going to be. And that patch is that JSON, just to say this is what it is. I mean, obviously, if you were then using that, then you'd be able to control the room's temperature, perhaps. If that was a controllable thermostat, then I guess that's what that'll be doing there. But now, if I stick this back again and run it, we should get 2 rooms. There we are, and they're both at 80. So I mean, that's the absolute basics of how that's working, and we can run through far more complicated scenarios to do that. But that's the first 2 really basic tutorials to get digital twins up and running. as I say, if we go to this Digital Twins Explorer here, which is where you download it, then you can see there's way more complicated graphs here that you can use. So this is setting it all up, which is what we've done, and then creating an example graph. So this is setting it up first with the same settings that we had before, and then uploading models. And I suppose we could do this as client and then examples. Let's have a look, see what it looks like. So if I trash these two, and then if we run that again, theoretically there shouldn't be anything there. Oh, maybe not. How do I then clear this off? Ah, yeah, delete. Delete. Although I had flaws there before, so let's do this. And they've probably got flaws here. Okay, let's delete these. Might be a faster way. Oh, it's already deleted. That's why. There's probably a faster way of doing this, but that's going to work. So we can upload. And so instead of going in the samples, you can actually go in the Explorer, and then in Client, and then Examples, and then I think it wanted us to insert all of these things. So we got consumers and and gas plants and hydro plants and everything. So okay, let's do that. We should get a shed load of those now, each with their own little bit of JSON, so power requirements and in double. What else have we got? A city plant. What's that look like? That's an interface. And a farm consumer, another interface. So it looks like most of these are going to be, oh, here we are. So an interface down into properties and relationships. So that's cool. So what's it going to say to do next? Import the graph and then choose this distribution grid. So I mean, this is very similar to what we were doing already before. So there should be a distribution grid. There we are. So actually two, look, national grid as well. But let's see what distribution grid gives us. I'm going to drag this off to one side so that we don't have to sit and quit flicking between those two. But yeah, so looks like we've got a heap of stuff being imported here. So that Excel spreadsheet, in fact, let's have a look at that Excel spreadsheet, shall we? Client examples, and let's have a look, see what it looks like, because I've not actually looked at these. Let's have a look. Okay, so a model ID and then an ID and a relationship from and a relationship name and some data. Submain Street. So I'm guessing this is like a hierarchical list, feeds and has generator. So yeah, that's interesting. So let's go back and have a look what it does. No, don't want to save that. And you can go away as well. And let's save that. Create all of the relationships and requested twins. 49 twins and 50 relationships, which according to the tutorial, that's exactly what we should get. And then we should be able to run that query. Let's see what we get. It's obviously way bigger than the previous one, so it's taking its time doing it. Oh, there's all sorts of stuff spidering around. Wow, okay. Cracking. And that doesn't look too different to that preview that we had before. Oh, look at that. That zooms in as well. I'm guessing I can drag that around. So done that, done that, done that. What else does it give us? Interestingly, that tutorial seems to be a bit odd. So it gets you set up and then there's a quick start. And then it seems to do the same thing again afterwards. Created twin. You can create twins relationships in there as well. So it looks like the rest of it is creating your own relationships. You can create twins of relationships in there. To create more than a few, you probably want to use the import feature that we used below, but to create a twin instance, use the plus button in any of the model items in the list. But you can select all of that, maybe. Expansion level. You would have thought there'd be like a select all, maybe. Don't know what run layout does. And I don't know what they are either. I can't do a control A, which is a shame. I can expand the tree and collapse the tree. So yeah, I don't actually know how you'd go about deleting everything in there. It's just a bit of a pain. But you can, I think you can drag these on or something as well. Plus. So we can add delivery substation is what it's saying in there. So add a delivery substation. Name must be unique. PJG substation 1. Save. There it is. And then you must have at least 2 twins in your graph to be able to create a relationship, which kind of makes sense. So select the source twin first by clicking on it, and then hold the shift key and click the target twin. So that's all right. Let's like a. So let's make it that, and then create a relationship. Select an option, feeds, maybe, and then save. And there we are. So it's actually that is connected now to 2 substations by the looks of it. So that's the relationship that's created. So that works quite well. It's a shame you can't sort of select more than one thing at a time very easily without sort of having to use shift, which is a bit of a pain. Actually click on the relationship, which doesn't give me very much. I would have thought maybe you'd get like a definition just for the relationship there, but you don't. Save a query. Oh, okay, so we can save queries. Basic. Oh, and there we are. So we've got different queries in there. So I wonder what these actually do. Not much. But we can look at different layouts. Ah, okay. Oh, that's cool. Kind of I remember visualizing my GitHub check-ins, and it would sort of make a graph like this. I can't remember what that was called actually. It was dead cool. That kind of reminds me of that. Oh man. Obviously with this zoomed in, it's quite hard to visualize everything. Ooh, oh yeah, not a big fan of that one. Clay. That kind of that one speaks to me. That kind of feels logical to me. Distribution grid down at the bottom. It's connected directly to that subcorp as well. So it'd be interesting to know exactly what all of this really means. So the Excel import format is based on model ID, the complete DTMI for the model ID, the unique ID, relationship between ID with an outgoing relationship to the new twin, relationship name, the name of the outgoing relationship for the twin to the previous column, and then a JSON string that contains properties. We can select a node, yeah, and then we can edit stuff in there, potentially, power requirements. And then you can hold 2, hold control down as well. Multi-select, of course. Ensure twins are selected in the order of the relationship direction. Okay, yeah. And then there's a settings toggle here too. Ah, yeah, and then there's a console and an output as well that we can do things with. But it doesn't tell me a great deal about that. So I mean, there's no point in digging too deep into this just in this particular stream, because I just wanted to demonstrate actually how easy it is to get something like this up and running. And then in an upcoming stream, I'm going to go through and teach myself how to do it to a degree. I mean, I've had a play with the original preview, and this is sort of the first time I've dug into the brand new features of Digital Twins in any depth. I've watched all the videos, and they're pretty cool. So do go and check those out. There's a whole heap of stuff that you can go and gen up on. But the IoT show have done a heap of deep dives with Pamela Cortez. In fact, has been prolific in creating videos along with Olivier Bloch. With some cracking guests. One of the guest companies have had is a company called Bentley Systems, and they've created a bit of JS that allows you to be able to do 3D representations of things like roads and bridges and tunnels, and then you can like represent sensors in tunnels. And they were demonstrating where a lorry had jackknifed in a tunnel. And the carbon dioxide was going up, and it would highlight that section in red, and that was pretty cool. It's worth watching. So yeah, with that's quite a short stream, but I just wanted to jump on and demonstrate that. So hopefully in an upcoming stream I'll go through in a bit more detail some of the other intricacies that are available for it. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon.